Diane, welcome.
Hey,
So great to
how
see
are
you.
you, Tim?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you. Happy New Year. Happy belated holidays. I think I wished you a happy holiday around the holidays.
Yeah,
I think I reached out to you for this around the
you
holidays.
did,
So
and you just had a birthday too, right? Right?
I did.
25? Yeah.
Sure. Whatever you wanna say. I'll take anything under the real age. Thank you very much.
Really, what I need to congratulate you for is you have blown my mind last year. You know, when you told me I want to create and produce like 1,000 pieces of music, I was like, are you insane? And you did better than that, didn't you?
I hit 1,000. I think there may be a couple of stragglers out there that push it beyond that number, but I really like November 20th was my day. November 20th, I hit the mark and I promised myself, I said, dude, you're going to take a break because I got to say, like the last 50 or 60, it was, man, there was like genre barriers being crossed over. I was releasing like lo-fi that had some more intensity, and then I was releasing, horror stuff that had more of like a digital vibe. I'm like, oh man, the genres are all over the map. I've got to give my creative side a break and just take a little breath and just settle into the holidays and enjoy that fact that I've gotten to this milestone of the ride and know that, it's time to rekindle and recharge the creative juices,
Yeah.
So stayed committed to that. There's several little ideas I came up with between then and today, basically. But right now, I think the whole first quarter for me is going to be just ideation time, creating ideas, talking to creatives like yourself, seeing what's coming down the pipeline as far as needs and concerns with music, and using that as a stepping stone to create the next wave of stuff this year. So 275 tracks this year too? Probably not. That was last year, which is, again, like you said, insane is an apt description for it.
I gotta think though, since you delve into so many different genres, it really does kind of help be creative, because if you're just like doing the same thing, let's say, oh, I'm just going to do horror stuff. Over time, I would think you'd just be like, okay, it's harder for me to think of a different angle to come at horror from.
Yeah. I've mentioned that a few times on the podcast where I've looked back in retrospect and realized, because I took a break from horror for a while and I did lo-fi or meditation music or orchestral stuff for like D&D and that kind of thing, making that and taking that deviation allows me to come back to a genre I like horror, with a new perspective, right? I've had life experiences and other genres I've explored, and then I come back to it and I'm like, wow, that's a different way to do that. Let's try this. And I'll do it for like 3 or 4 tracks. And, I'd have to say that's probably how I came out with that album in June, Heretic. Yeah. However you want to pronounce it. There's 25 tracks on that album. So I don't think I've ever released a compilation that big. And at the time I was just like, well, I could separate these into sub horror genres now. I'm like, screw it. I'm just going to put the whole thing out and make it all available to everybody and just be done with it. And I had no idea I was going to release this huge barrage. Like, I've had a couple of people come back at me. They're like, dude, where did all these come from?
Yeah, I was thinking, is Tim feeling like a heretic all of a sudden? Because, wow, he really was inspired there. Are they going to be burning him at the stake next? Or
hopefully not. Well, you're showering me with praise. You had a huge milestone hit last year, you and Kelly. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about hitting the 600th plus milestone of your podcast, and 14 years.
We're coming into correct? Year number 12 now. Okay. And yeah, so we crossed over 621 is the next episode that I'm working on. And we crossed over. The big number for me is 9 million downloads, which just blows my mind, because I'm like,
that's fantastic.
That many people really wanted to listen to me talking about haunted locations. It's amazing.
That is so cool.
Especially being
That is so
something that's
cool.
like niche, because something that's like real, like when you got Joe Rogan and you compare your numbers to something like that, you're like,
well, that's also comparison's the thief of joy,
exactly.
right? And you're comparing yourself to an OG that was out there. Between him and Mike Maron, I think they were like the original quote unquote podcasters. Again, go back to 2006, 2005, 2006 when he started, and listen to some of those episodes. They're not
exactly
good. They're not great. It took him a while to get to who he is today. And, disrespect to Joe in any way, shape, or form, but you kind of have to crawl before you walk, before you run, right? And he just has more time in the tank. And, I don't know. I think everybody flubs in the beginning with this whole thing. My first dozen or so episodes, I'm just like, I go back and I cringe when I listen to them. I'm like, ooh, really stilted, not very loose and communication like this, just like a loose dialogue. None of that. And I was so concerned about all the things I was going to talk about that I got tied up and hanging on every note and every word and everything I had to say, that you just don't talk like a human being, and that's what people enjoy. They like to hear the dialogue.
exactly.
Right? They want to know that you're having a good time with this, and then people come along for the ride, or they check it out for a little bit. They check out some of your shorts or whatever, and they're like, nah, it's not for me. That's fine. Well, I just qualified you, my tribe will come. That's how I look at it,
Exactly. And like you said, people like it when stuff is looser. Like when we're getting ready to interview somebody, I'll have a few questions here and there just in case, they're not, because sometimes people aren't a good interview. They're kind of like, you ask them a question, they're like, yeah, okay. And then you ask them something else, and they're like, no, not really. Okay. Yeah. So then you have to really have some stuff to fall back on. But yeah, I'll just have a few questions there. And usually if you get, somebody who's good with interviewing and really wants to talk about whatever they're talking about, it just flows into the next thing. And I find it's a lot better that way, because if you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to ask this question next, you've totally missed what they just said, which you could feed off of into something else, pull something else out of it that would be interesting. Sure. And so I think it helps you to be more present when you're doing the interview too.
Yeah. And when you have a loose, like I'm looking over to my right because I have a loose list of things I want to hit you with. And there's like a trigger point in the conversation where you touch on something, it's a perfect non sequitur, and I'm like, oh, speaking of that, I have that on my list. Let's ask this question. Boom. It's just like that way of discussing or having a discussion with somebody is so much more fluid and so much more natural sounding. And it just feels like you're having a normal conversation and you're not waiting for the other person to stop talking and then having a completely offhanded question fired at them that's like, okay, that has nothing to do with what we were just talking about, right? Like, so like you want that flow too. You want that natural flow and everything too. I find that I kind of pre-qualify people, and most of the people I've interviewed, I'm very lucky. Most of the people I've had on the show or interviewed have been very mid to high energy. They're excited to be there. They're excited to talk. They're excited to talk about whatever we're going to talk about. And if I pre-qualify it with a list of questions that I'm going to ask them in advance, or just kind of poke them in the beginning, like in advance, like a week in advance, and just, what are you going to think about talking on here? I'm going to ask you some questions, but there's some things you want to bring up. And then you get kind of an idea with the back and forth, even just email. I can tell an email, because been in a corporate world for so many years, I get a sense of this person I might need to lead them a little bit, or I might need to, poke in 2, 3, 4 areas I know they're excited about. That'll get them to talk, it's really strange. Like, just, you kind of have to understand human nature a little bit, I think, doing this kind of thing. Wouldn't you agree?
That is true. Although I would hate to say, trying to figure out people, I often find myself going, yeah, I just don't think I'll ever understand people. But you can lock into some individuals, like you said.
Yeah. There are some people you absolutely are correct in that statement. There are some people that I've come across in my life. It's a small percentage of the people, but there's an occasional thing where you just look at like, I don't ever know how to read you. I don't know what mood you're in. I don't know what direction this question is going to put you in. And they're a strange subsection of the populace that I'm just kind of like, well, I'm just going to ask the questions I want to ask, and we'll
Yeah,
see what
I'm
happens.
thinking like Walmart at 3:00 in the morning, which I have done before, and I don't recommend it. And so, yeah, those are the people that you're just like, I don't think I'm going to understand you.
So, looking back at this 12-year journey and this previous year, in 2025 and overall, what are your favorite episodes? Like, what pop out at you as some of the favorite episodes you've done?
I always tell people, the most favorite episode I'm working on is the one that I'm working on right now because I'm so focused on it.
Oh, that's a great answer.
I definitely love, we do these life and afterlife of celebrities, and they seem to be the most popular with other people too. And a lot of them are musicians, of course. I don't know what it is about you musicians that you like to hold on here in the afterlife. You like to hang out wherever you were at before. Now, a lot of musicians, I think it's because they die young, a bit too much partying and that kind of thing, overdosing.
There was that weird 27-year-old age for the longest time. There was a strange numerological thing going on. I remember there's several, I say several, it's probably dozens of celebrity that are at or around that age that passed away. And it's a very strange number. Like, is there a reason for that?
Whenever I think about something like they call it the 27 Club, I often think, is it just because people are focusing on that? Because if you go through and look at everybody who's overdosed or died young, I'm sure you're going to hit all different ages, but I think it's because of the particular people that happen to be in this 27 Club. Like the first one was Robert Johnson. And this is a guy who supposedly went to the crossroads, which is where the devil is supposed to meet you and you sell your soul. And he was supposedly the first one who did this. And then that's kind of when the devil cashes in. He's like, I'll give you all this fame and this talent, but when you hit 27, you're coming with me. And so Robert Johnson had no talent. He sucked. He couldn't play guitar to save his life. He supposedly goes to the crossroads, comes back into town, and everybody's like, holy cow, this guy can play. And now he's, a lot of artists out there will say that he's an inspiration for them. He was so good. But yeah, drank himself to death at the age of 27. And then you go into somebody like Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, all the way up to
Right, they're all 20.
Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain. So, I mean, these are the names that you've got in there. So I think that's why that 27 is really, people are like hooked into it. And they all died tragically,
Yeah. I think, I don't know if Lane Staley from Alice in Chains was the same age too,
I'm not
but
sure.
he was young.
Yeah.
It was a while back. But then there was a whole group from that Seattle scene that were in their 40s, mid to late 40s. The lead singer of Soundgarden, Chris Cornell, right? Also, what is it? Not Green Day. What happened to that guy? The guy from
Linkin Park. I was just thinking that was what you were thinking.
Yeah. And there's somebody else from out there. Oh, Stone Temple Pilots.
Yep.
Chris Weiland, right? They were in their 40s. So, like you said, it's weird. It's weird that we focus on that weird number, the 27 Club, but it really can be anywhere, right? And it's just strange. It's strange that we focus on numbers, and I think it's part of the human nature of trying to make sense out of chaos, right? Like, why did this happen? Like, why? Like, everything was going for this person, or that, like, might not even be drugs. It could just be like, oh, this tragic airline accident or car accident or something. I think of the guy, the reboots of Star Trek that J.J. Abrams done weren't well received because they didn't really piggyback off of the lore of like the Next Generation and stuff, where it's more that's the word I'm looking for. It's more cerebral.
Yeah.
The series is more cerebral, whereas these are more just flat out action flicks, and there wasn't a lot of cerebralness to it whatsoever. You know what I mean? It was kind of dumbed down. But the guy that took the role of Chekhov did a great job of the accent and everything, but he died tragically. He was like at the bottom of his driveway or something, and a car's brake slipped and it crushed him.
Yeah, it was his own Jeep.
And
I think he just had gotten out to open the gate or something, or he was locking the gate to his own house. It was his own Jeep. I don't know if he didn't get it in park properly, but yeah, it just rolled forward. I mean, I can't think of a worse way to die, being pinned against a gate and just,
Oh,
basically crushed to death.
yeah. Yeah.
Actually,
It's
I
awful.
think he is
Awful.
buried in the same cemetery as Chris Cornell. And I did see
Really?
Chris Cornell's burial like 2 years after it happened at Hollywood Forever Cemetery over in Southern California. It's such a cool
See, I'm
cemetery.
asking the right person about this stuff. I am totally asking the right person about
Yeah,
this
but
stuff.
I'm pretty sure he's buried there too. And I think they're pretty close to each other because there's not a whole lot of spaces there to put people in, but a lot of famous people are buried at
Okay.
Hollywood Forever.
Okay. Where is it, in Hollywood, California?
You can see the Hollywood sign from the cemetery. I don't know, like, if it's actually in Hollywood. That one I'm not for sure on.
Okay. Man, that's fascinating. I didn't even think that that's a thing, that celebrity would find a common area to be buried at. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's people that, a couple generations ago, you buried each other in the backyard. You know what I mean?
That is true.
Buying a plot or whatever. Like, yeah, no, we don't need to do that. We can just, Ma died, just burying her out in the backyard next to the dog.
It is kind of better that we do have more public burial grounds now, because one of the reasons why I say they're so important, like my folks have said, oh, you don't even have to put a headstone up for us. We don't care. Just cremate us. My dad was like, you can throw me in the trash. I don't care. And I'm like, no, Dad, I'm not going to do that. But historically, it's really important because it has names, dates, maybe what you did, the families all buried around each other. So it's really important to have these places because, like you said, a lot of these family plots that were on their land, they're just lost to history because over time, the house maybe's gone. It's farmland. This is why you do get haunted locations, because people don't even know the bodies are there anymore, especially if they had like a homemade kind of headstone or a wooden one. It wouldn't survive for very long.
Right. Which a good couple years.
Yeah, especially here in Florida.
Like that.
Forget it.
Yeah, right. That's a really interesting point. To preserve history, encouraging people to have a common area for burial and tombstones to, immortalize basically that history. And of course, by 3 or 4 generations, nobody knows who the hell you are. That's just the unfortunate reality of life. Unless you were a significant historical figure, you're going to be lost to the annals of history.
And there's people like,
even with a tombstone,
there's people like me who don't have any children, so I don't have, that's not going to continue on in my line. I have to hope that my niece and nephew, remember me or whatever. But yeah, I don't have I won't have any progeny, as they say, moving down the row here.
Yeah. But hopefully by extended family and everything else, that kind of encapsulates everything. Now, you made another switch last year as well, or at least in my perception, maybe a focus on this switch, and that is a switch to video. And your podcasts are regularly coming out via video. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's kind of like how, for me, especially coming into 2026, the word is pivot. Because as creative people, we're going to have to learn how to function in a world that is moving past us. And, we've got AI on the horizon. And while it's in its infancy right now, when you look at when something's getting started and where it ends up, eventually AI is just going to be like, we're already competing with each other. And then we've got that to compete with too. And as I was just watching everything on YouTube and stuff, we've been on YouTube ever since we started in 2014. But what our podcast host would do is they would just take the static cover photo that we would have for a particular episode, throw it up, and then put the audio behind it. So it was just, so early on, there'd be all these complaints in the comments about, well, this is just a static picture. And I'm like, well, don't you understand? It's a podcast. And then all of a sudden, all the videos started coming out as more and more people were getting into podcasting. You started seeing that most of it was video. And for a lot of us who are the early adapters of podcasting and hold on to the historical value of that, it was hard because it's like, that's not a podcast. That's like a video cast or something, because a podcast really is like just in your ears. That's why it was called that. And it's a very specific thing. But then you get to a point where you're like, well, you either put up or shut up. And so it was like, you know what? If we're going to get in and keep competing with everything that's out there, we're going to have to get into the video. And my real goal in the back of my mind was, maybe this will bring us a new audience, because you're just constantly fighting to get attention anymore, because there's literally millions and millions and millions of pieces of creative stuff out there to listen to, watch, whatever. And so I was just like, we're going to have to get into video to at least try to maybe bring in other people who watch the video and then go, oh, there's more. Maybe I can go get the podcast over here. I don't have time to watch it, so I'll put it in my ears here. Or, and I feel like when people see you, it changes things too, because then they start to it's very intimate being in people's ears. So they already kind of feel like you're a friend to them. But then when they see you and watch you acting and talking and all this stuff, I think they get even more of a deeper connection. So I think that was partly what I was trying to do, is not because I love being on video or what have you, because now it used to be we could roll out of bed on a Saturday morning, our hair going every which way, and, just turn on the mics and record it into the little Zoom recorder and we're good to go. Now it's like, okay, I got to take a shower and get my hair done and my makeup because I'm going to be on video. So it is a bit of a pain.
To be somewhat presentable, right?
But you know what I found? And I don't know if other podcasters have found this when they get into doing the video, but now I edit the video and turn that into the MP3. And it is so much easier to edit video, because when I'm just listening to the audio, I am so tyrannical about it that I get really hung up on making sure all the waves are very equal. And this one's a little bit too much, and this is overdriven, and this is not enough, and I got to raise it. And with video, I don't find myself obsessing as much.
What are you recording and editing in, if you don't mind me asking?
Just using Zoom.
Oh, okay.
And then what I do is I pull the Zoom and throw the video through Alphonic, a program called Alphonic, and it levels the video and pops out just a regular video out of it too. It also gives me an MP3, but I just grab the video. So I'll just do regular Zoom, let them do the recording, and then when I put it through Alphonic, it makes it sound better than, because Zoom actually does have pretty good audio, I think, and the Alphonic just crisps it up enough to make it so it's all balanced, and it takes like the breaths out and that kind of thing for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I started with the video-based recordings that I did, but within a month or two of doing that is when I discovered Riverside, and ever since I've gotten with used Riverside, night and day between the micro clips it produces for me, the simple audio balancing I can do. It balances out the audio levels. So your mic could be a little hotter than mine, or, I could have some variation in the volume of mine because I'm not speaking directly into the mic, or any number of things. And it's got some kind of processor in the background that just figures all that out, make sure it's not making things too hot or too cold. It balances it between the two, so it's not one person yelling at the other person. And it also is a contextual editor, so it takes the transcript, and that's where it generates the micro content from.
Okay.
So it'll contextually read the transcript and be like, this is an area of focus based on where you started with the conversation and ended, and it'll take that and go, okay, here's a mid-form piece of content that's 3.5, 4 minutes long. You check it out and see if I cut this out properly. And then you can go into it and you can play around with it. You go like, okay, how long of pauses do I want? Well, I only want about 1.5 seconds between each pause. What about the ums and ahs? Now let's eliminate as many of those as possible, right? And it just goes through, and then you look at your timeline and there's all these little edits all the way across it, and it takes care of all of it. So I don't sit there painstakingly doing any of that stuff anymore. For a couple $100 a year, this thing is the bee's knees, man. This is such a high-powered tool.
I might have to check that out. That sounds nice.
I highly recommend you check it out. And there's a affiliate thing on my website.
Okay.
So if you ever want to check it out, go ahead and take a look there. There's a whole page of affiliate stuff that I do, and that's one of them. I only put stuff on there that I either use or I highly support based on the high quality of whatever it is. And this is one of them, honestly, like bar none. This is amazing stuff. So if you think that you can do more in the way of podcasts in stories and everything else, and what's really holding you back is that editing process, I highly recommend. I can't stress it enough. Give it a shot. I think they do like a free trial period or whatever. Go in there, record a couple of them, and see what it pumps out. Like, you'll be able to fill up your YouTube shorts and drive traffic to YouTube channel with that, with these little micro content. That's what I'm doing now, is that I'll record something like this. It'll come up with, and I'll share these with you, by the way. You can put these on your channel as well if you want. And I use them. I'll put out a piece of micro content, just a short reel or TikTok, and it'll point back to the full episode. So it's a teaser, it's like, oh, here's something that Diane and I talked about. If you want to hear more, here's the full episode. Or even like the mid-level ones, like they're 3 or 5 minutes. Like, here's a big section from this conversation that we had. Want to hear more about it? Here's the thing. And it's a way of, circularly advertising all the different content and pushing people around the socials and everything.
Well, that clip thing is really what sounds attractive to me, because I try to make those occasionally myself, and it takes a long time unless you're like, write down, oh yeah, during this time that would be a really good clip. And I can't tell you how many emails I get from, hey, we're a new company, we'd love to go through and make clips for you. I mean, there's got to be dozens and dozens of those.
They're doing the same thing. They're taking the master file, dumping it into a product like Riverside, and basically doing the same thing for you, and then paying you, putting a price tag on top of all
charging you probably 3 times as much.
Sure. You can skip the middleman and let you try it out.
Yeah.
So I had a question that piggybacked off of, adding video to it. Do you like it better? And how does your audience responded to it?
That's interesting. I think we've definitely gotten new people from it. As for the audience we already had, haven't really said one way or the other that they enjoy it more. So I have a feeling that our standard audience that we had already is probably still just maybe listening to audio like they were before. But I think we've definitely gotten some newer people. And I've definitely noticed on our like YouTube numbers and stuff, they've definitely gone up. And it seems like the main thing too is you want to see how long are you retaining people for? Because you'll look at the numbers and be like, we got, like 1,000 views of this. And then you look at the analytics and it's like, well, like a handful stayed past 3 seconds or whatever. And you're like, so you want to see, how are you retaining people? And so that's the main thing that I've noticed, is it seems like the retention is staying longer because there's something for people to watch. And that's why we changed the way that we used to start an episode. Is you play the intro music, which would be like 30 seconds, and then you'd come in and talk a little bit and then jump into some other stuff. And now I'm like, I want to grab people because we're doing the video thing, and I know they're just like, doot. So I'm like, right off the get, it's just us coming on and saying, hey, welcome to the show. Here's what we're going to talk about. And then we go into the intro music now.
Yeah. I don't even bother with the intro anymore. Intro, outro, nothing. And the reason being is just what you said. I think people weren't even sticking. They're like, can't be bothered. Like, what's the thing? Give me the thing. And then even beyond that, I'm doing it on a level where with the micro content, it's like, yeah, I'm going to do these shorts. I'm going to do 30, 60-second shorts and just see if people are interested enough in the episode and stick around for the short, because I'll look at the analytics on that on YouTube, and, occasionally you get one. I mean, if you're getting 40, 50% retention to the end, I'm like, great. Half the people that are picking this up and watching it are watching it towards the end. There's something you can see, and it's weird. Like, I think people that aren't into this and don't look at analytics on a regular basis don't understand the excitement of it. But once you understand how things work and what the graphs mean, and you can just stare at it for a second and you can read, and you're like, at 15 seconds, people didn't give a shit. Why? And then like you go into the video and you're like, okay, I kind of get why they
that was
clicked off. Okay, that's not interesting. Yeah. You know what I mean? But you see it, and it's like an aha moment. You're like, what happened there? Like, you could see all the stuff on the graph. Like, what happened there to get people to leave? What happened there? Why did they stay? Why did it go? Like, it went 3 seconds, you lost your normal people, and then it like leveled out. Why? Okay, there's a certain group that this video got pushed to that really liked it. Like I'm sure you're seeing it. I'm starting to experiment with a lot of shorts, and it's stuff that celebrates my music, like the legacy catalog. It's little quick clips that are a la Adult Swim, like these little intermezzos that are on Adult Swim. It's like a strange picture juxtaposed against a piece of music that doesn't always really fit with it. And like, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to do that. I want to do that. And then alternate scoring to little micro scenes from movies and TV. And between those three things, those are like just daily, just coming out. And some of that stuff is just like the shorts are where it's at.
Absolutely.
They're like, all that stuff is popping. So I've actually changed the face of my YouTube channel. I've decided that if people really want to see get to the music, the individual shorts have a poke out to the website. It's a redirect to like, hey, you like this track? Go check it out over here. Hey, you like this track? Go check it out over here. Hey, I did this alternate score. Like the score? Go check it out over here. Not a hard sell. It's a if you're interested, click the link. If not, enjoy the content, right?
Yeah.
And I think I'm finally getting it. You got to be a content creator first, and then the music comes behind it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
mean, it is
like,
true.
I have to entertain you first.
Yeah.
You know?
And the shorts, you're absolutely right. I mean, we probably get 10 times the view on a short that we do. I don't know if it's just because YouTube loves to push that stuff out, but I think a lot of it is just because that's what people, they've gotten used to TikTok, which is funny because TikTok went from you've got 15 seconds to now. I think you can even do an hour now on TikTok. I'm not sure, but
it's a long, I remember 10 minutes was a milestone at one point on that platform, but it's almost like they're all converging upon each other.
Yeah.
Like nobody doesn't want to offer the same thing other platforms do. You know what I mean? Very strange.
But YouTube is
very
definitely
strange.
stuck to that. You got to do it in a minute or else.
Oh yeah. Oh, for the shorts for it to be an official short. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll hit like a minute.
Anything beyond
second,
that,
I'm like, dang it.
Yeah. Now it's in my other video section. It's not really meant to be there, right? It's not appropriate for that. Yeah. So when I'm working with my social media manager on creating stuff, it has to be in that capacity, or else it won't go up. It won't go up, like you said. It won't go up where it's supposed to.
You want it to get pushed big time.
Yeah, that stuff gets pushed a hell of a lot more than full length videos now, and you just got to be. I mean, we're 34 minutes in. I still got more stuff to talk to you about, but I've found that even my podcast, like I used to do like hour and a half, 2 hour long, epic long form podcast. Now I'm like, well, if they go like an hour 20, hour and 30 minutes, I split them in half and I make a 2-parter, because I don't think anybody has the capacity or cares enough to stick around for the whole conversation. So I'll just split it up, and I still have the micro content. So if they're going to consume it in these little mini-sodes, so to speak, then they can do it that way. Or if they're a fan or a super fan, they're going to watch the whole thing, and that's fine too. So I'm going to make it all available, whatever. It's
and I've found the same thing with, I used to be like, I always want to hit at least 45 minutes. Sometimes we'd go over. And now, especially because a lot of the big haunted locations, we've done them at this point. 12 years in, we're doing a lot of smaller type locations, or it's like a small town and all the haunts that are in that small town. And a lot of those take, maybe a 30-minute episode. And I used to be like, I need it longer. But I'm like, you know what? I am just getting used to the fact that people are short attention span and they want to, just stream and pop into the next thing. And it's just, so some of these people, like we were mentioning Joe Rogan earlier, and, you think, who sits for 3 hours? I guess they do for him. I don't know. But at this point, I would be like, I don't think I'd want to do something epic like that, because people, even in my own, like, I love listening to podcasts. If I'm looking at something, I'm like, I don't think I want to sit for 3 hours to listen to that. And I might pass over because it's longer,
There's certain episodes or certain guests that he has on that affords itself that. Like when he does the Protect Your Parks episode, which I don't even think they talk about the parks anymore. The original one was supposed to be about, protecting national parks and everything. But now it's just him and a bunch of his comedian buddies getting on, firing back some drinks and just being belligerent and having fun. And it's like, well, it's hilarious to listen to these guys, because 3 hours into it, they're just getting all rambunctious and raucous and everything. And you're like, you guys are nuts. You guys are completely crazy and nuts. And exactly what I think, that whole society is, like the comedic society or whatever. But to sit there and interview somebody for 3 hours straight, my God. And like there's one person that gets away with that for me, and that's Lex Freeman. He does a really good job, even though it's kind of it's a little on the dry side. His questions are very, very
Unique and
poignant,
stuff, yeah.
and he really, really gets to the crux of his person, and in a calm and just a really like stoic fashion. I don't know what it is about him, but he's excited, but like paced and reserved, and just some of the interviews he's done, I've been like, man, this is really interesting. At first glance, I'm kind of like, it's just kind of talking head stuff. I'm like, no, it's pretty good talking head stuff. It's up there, you know?
I agree.
It's good stuff. That was one of my big questions with you was, you've been doing this for 12 years and you go on these trips to actually do locational experiences and podcasts on location, I'm assuming, right? Whether it's during the process or experiential after the fact, like back in the hotel. But you've gone to so many of them that was one of my biggest questions, was going to be, geez, have you exhausted everything? But I can't imagine that's the case. And now that you're saying that there's smaller venue stuff and there's things that aren't always on the big radar, like how do you find these other locations when there's this probably huge database of like all the big places? Like there's big places here in Florida, there's big places back up north, he's like I'm sure you've made it to Salem and have all the lore and everything else. Like, how do you find the smaller ones? Like, is it through the audience? Is it through exhaustive research? Like, what process do you take?
All of the above. I have over here a huge library, and so I have all kinds of books. So a lot of it comes out of books, and I've had listeners send me books and stuff. We get a ton of suggestions from our listeners too, especially because a lot of these small towns, I'll tell Kelly, nobody's going to listen to this. Like, we have a Gainesville here in Florida. Did you know they have a Gainesville in Georgia too?
No, I did not.
So we just did that a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like, I don't know if anybody's really going to listen to it, who's ever heard of it. And I have found every time I say that, it is one of the most listened to episodes. And I think it's because people are like, oh, I haven't heard of that. Or you start hearing from a ton of people, like we did Massillon, Ohio. I had never heard of the place. It's really well known for college football and stuff, I guess, Friday Night Lights and everything. But I didn't know that much about it. And that's what we get the most feedback about. Oh, I live near there. I live near there. And people get so excited because they're like, hey, that's within driving distance. I could go check that out and that kind of thing. So a lot of it comes from hearing from listeners, getting it in books. I'll stumble across things. So I don't know if it's just the universe suggesting stuff to us. The most interesting part of this journey for me, because it does, like how I said, when you do different genres, it probably helps to keep it fresh for you and exciting. When you talk about haunted history, and it's like a lot of it's the same stuff. The doors open and close on their own. The lights turn on and off by themselves. And when you've done that for 12 years, you start to get like, okay, I'm bored to death with this. So then when you hear something that's new and exciting, it really pumps you up. But I've gone from, when I first started doing this, I leaned more skeptical. I think most of it's baloney. I don't know if there's really anything to this ghost thing. And then through the middle of the journey, and as I went to locations and had a lot of my own experiences that I couldn't explain, I started leaning more towards the believer. And now I don't know if it's that I'm evening out or leaning back towards the skeptical. Even though I've had all of my own unexplained experiences, I still find myself going, did that really happen? Is that really a haunting thing? So that's been what's interesting on this journey for me too, is doing all this stuff. But that's the great thing about the smaller places, because like the big places that want to charge you $1,000 to come through and investigate for the night, you start to go, are they doing it for the money? And is there really something happening here? But when it's a smaller location that really isn't advertising it that much, it's a lot more believable, because it's like, what do they have to gain from this? There's even some places that, keep it on the down low. They don't want people to know that they have a ghost because maybe people won't come stay or what have you.
Right. And do they all charge? Do the ones that have some kind of known lore or some kind of history in the space, or is it kind of varies based
It
on
depends.
popularity?
It depends. Like if it's
Yeah.
places that are, I guess they would call them, they're not like haunted attractions, but that's their main goal. Yes. Or during certain times of the year, they might open up the place to ghost hunts. Like, during October, there's a lot of museums that don't necessarily have like a ghost tour during the year, but when it's September, October, the beginning of November, hey, we're going to go ahead and offer some ghost tours at the museum too. So if it's a big historic house or something somewhere, they might normally have like, come see the Christmas lights during Christmas, and then it's just regular historical tours. And then we get to October and it's like, hey, we're going to throw in the ghost stuff too. So then they might charge for that, but they might not offer investigations. But like bigger locations like a Waverly Hills Sanatorium, that's what they do. I mean, they do offer history tours too. A ghost tour there that's just kind of a tour thing. But if you want to investigate, it's going to cost you more money, especially if you want to rent out the place to yourself so that you're not sharing it with a bunch of people.
That makes more sense, because now you're doing an investigation. You don't want anything corrupting the experience. So you're asking basically for exclusivity for a time slot. Time is limited. Time is money. And it's like, sure, you can do that. But it's going to, like you said, it's going to cost you $1,000 to spend an overnight experiencing this.
A lot of places like that, for example, Waverly Hills, you'd be paying $1,000 for the night, but you can have up to 10 people there with you. So if you get a group of people, then it's only $100 each. So it's not as big of a deal.
Right. That's, that makes much more sense than just from the sake of, just from the fact that they're a business. Their business is that this place has paranormal activity in it. So to shut down and not have compensation for that wouldn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So
and
that makes sense to me.
There's people that are a little bit bothered by historical locations that embrace that and want to make money in that way because they feel like it's, stomping on the history of the people who'd lived there or whatever. But one of the things I tell people is, do you know how much it costs to put a roof on one of these places? That's how they pay for it, really. And that's why a lot of places that may have been kind of reluctant to go that route all of a sudden start embracing, maybe we should kind of let people come in and do the ghosty thing because, the roof is leaking and, it's going to cost us
Let's keep the lights on,
$30,000.
right?
We could make it pretty fast if we let people come in and do some investigating.
Listen, you can be charitable to a fault and then nobody can experience it.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to find that middle of the road. And I totally respect and appreciate that. As long as that road doesn't get crossed so much that it now obscures what's reality and what is basically to keep the thing alive. Like I've heard stories, I can't remember exactly where, but I've heard stories of where the venue itself embellished some of the happenings to encourage more people to come, and been debunked by people like specialists that come in and are like, no, there's nothing happening here. Like this is complete hogwash and you guys are charlatans.
Yeah.
Have you discovered that along the way?
Yes. I mean, I kind of feel like people who follow like paranormal television and stuff have probably noticed a lot of that has disappeared. There's not a whole lot of paranormal stuff on TV anymore. And I don't know if it's just that it kind of hit its peak and now it's fading away, if people have just gotten tired of it. But I think it's because, let me just say, when you're investigating a location, it's pretty boring. I mean, people don't get thrown across the room. It's little subtle things that you will notice usually. And a lot of the experiences that we've had or that I hear from other people, they're very personal. So they're not something that works on video or TV very well. Because it's like, if I smell a scent, there's no smell-o-vision, for you. So it's like, I can't give that to you. Or one time, Kelly, we were in a place and she got a copper taste in her mouth. And when we thought about it later and she'd smelled some gun smoke, we were it was like an old train depot. And during the Civil War, this was behind a hotel in Virginia. And a lot of hotels got turned into hospitals. just right there at the Civil War because there were battlefields everywhere. So they're bringing all these bodies over there. Well, people are dying. So they're just piling them up in this train depot because they got to put them somewhere. And so she's standing in there and she's a little bit sensitive to this kind of stuff. And later on, when we thought about it, we're like, you got the smell of gun smoke. So like a gun going off or a cannon going off. She got the taste of copper in her mouth, which to me signifies blood. She also had ringing in her ears.
Yeah.
And so we kind of felt like she was whatever the energy, whether it was some spirit that was there that was conveying to her what had happened to them or something like that. You have that kind of a thing. You can't share that on a video. We could tell people about it and it makes for an interesting story. But even I couldn't share that with her because I'm like, okay, she's feeling all these things and having these experiences. And I'm, didn't get any of that from that. So when you see these shows that are on TV, I won't mention any, but that get these like amazing things that happen, or even on YouTube, it's really gotten bad on YouTube. I mean, I put some of these people that are on YouTube on and I'm like, really? Come on. So but you have to do big stuff to get attention now. And it's kind of crazy.
It makes for entertaining TV or video or content. But if you're really a true fan of, I'd say fan, is that the right word? If you have a true interest in this and you're interested in authentic experiences that happen to people, then most of what we see and is available and has high production value is pretty much just for entertainment purposes only.
And
that's
you
what
need
it
to
comes
know
down
your audience, because there's an audience that just wants to be entertained. But I know when people are coming to History Goes Bump, they're probably they care a lot more about history, because we'll have some people who are like, oh, there's so much history. And it's like, okay, well, then the show's not for you, because, that's what we mostly focus on. Because the history I believe in or whatever, the ghost stories, we always leave it to people. That's for you to decide. Is it haunted? I'm not going to say whether it is for sure or not. I don't know that the stories are real, but I'm going to present them to you and you can decide. So I don't want to say I have a higher caliber of listener, but I think they expect something more than just baloney,
They sound like they're a little more cerebral in the sense that they want to understand.
That's a good word for it.
The idea behind it. Yeah. They're more interested in the history and the lore, and you leave it up to, like you said, them to decide, is this real? Is it not? Go experience it for yourself. You be the judge, for your own experience. That's kind of what life is supposed to be about, right? Like, if you're that interested in it, go experience it for yourself. I've been to Salem, it's interesting stuff. I don't know if I buy half of it, but I don't have to. It's not.
Well, and I was just going to say, for a lot of us, history was boring in school. And when I started going on ghost tours, I was like, history's not boring. And so I just feel like if you get into the haunting stuff, it kind of brings people into the history, because then they're like, oh, history's not that boring. To me, if they would have done history in school like I do history, I'd be like, wow, this is so cool. But, when I was in school, I mean, obviously I've gotten older, so I get more into that kind of stuff anyway, but it would have been a lot more interesting to me if we would have talked more about, amputations and things like that during the Civil War or what have you, or the whole embalming practice got started during the Civil War. Well, that's fascinating. Why didn't you talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, my daughter goes to a high school that's a charter school that emphasizes art and, creativity in all classwork. So it doesn't matter if you're taking philosophy or history or math or whatever. In some way, shape, or form, art is introduced in and around that.
Neat.
And it's piggybacking off of what you just said. If traditional subject matter was given a separate, like, interesting tangent flavor to it to keep people interested and to keep the kids interested while they're learning, there'd be so much better engagement, because they're not going to be thinking just like, oh, okay, we're going to go through ancient world history and the pyramids and stuff. And they're kind of cool, but like for 5 minutes. But then if they start talking about, okay, so what's a good example of that? Like, what's the alternate? Yeah, a curse or a counterculture potential history that is, the 3 Great Pyramids at Giza. There's studies being done now that suggest that maybe they weren't anything to do with tombs. They were actually power source, And for years, the cultural administration of, Egyptology have shunned that. But now there's just growing evidence that suggests that there's a lot more going on there than we know. And the age of things there, the Sphinx being far older than any of those structures. And for years, I mean, people that were put up on a pedestal of being quackery, like Eric von Daniken and stuff like that, suggesting decades ago that there's a lot more going on to our history than meets the eye. And this is a suggestion based on this stuff. There's some evidence here. The theory is this. It's still not fully proven, but, it's kind of cool to think about. We get this history and this information drilled down our throats, and then we're not supposed to question it. We're not supposed to think with our own minds and say, like, maybe there's an alternative to this. Maybe there's an alternative history. History's made by the winners.
Exactly.
Right? So any number of things could have happened in the past, and we wouldn't be the wiser of it because libraries are burned to the ground, or any evidence of the counter is gone because that next ruler is like, nope, I want you to wipe out any history of this. That's gone forever. I don't care if it's stone or what, blow it up, And that's, how do we know? We'll never know.
Yes.
Because there's no evidence
Some of my
left.
favorite podcasts that I listen to are Hidden History is the subject matter. And when you listen to some of that stuff, even doing the history that we do, and you talk about some of these buildings, and then you sit back and you think about it, like we just did the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., and you think about the Iron Dome that's up there, and they didn't have cranes? Like, how were they building some of this stuff back in the day? And then you start looking at other things and them going, well, maybe the buildings were here before. Because even when you'd hear about the World Fairs, they would just erect these massive buildings all over the place and do it in like a matter of a couple of months. And it's like, how? I'm watching them build a house here, and it's like taking them 6 months. And they were building, the Crystal Palace in New York City. How? It blows your mind. So it does make you wonder, like, when did all this history, like timing, start and stuff? Because we didn't live then. So anything that's beyond a couple of generations, you don't have someone who can personally say, hey, I was there and witnessed this or what have you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a part of the technology missing from your history books. This is what we did. See, these giant slabs of, to make the giant pyramids, well, we use this super saturated sand, and they just kind of glided across it.
Rolled it
and,
across logs.
I mean, like or they actually had running water there at the time, and they had a system of flotillas that would float them downstream to where the construction site was. And then other thing, like any number of things could have been the case. There's a whole like subgenre of lost history or it's pseudoscience, at least on the surface now, but where sound was used for construction and moving objects and that kind of thing. And it's not even really widely spoken, but there's theories about it. There's theories that certain tones can do. I mean, I'm studying frequencies this year, specifically for meditation music and for some Reiki channels, meditation channels. I want to incorporate it into some of the new stuff. And specifically because I read this book recently on it, and just how certain tones kind of like bring out like healing properties in the body. And it, like, we use ultrasound to do imagery of the interior, organs of our bodies and everything. We use sonic sounds to break up kidney stones and, relieve that kind of pain and discomfort. So is it that much farther of a stretch to suggest that sound frequencies can be used for healing properties or realign the body in certain ways? Like, I don't think it's such a stretch or such a crazy phenomenon. So I want to explore it and study it and incorporate it in some of my tunes and see if it actually does some good and some help,
It's so fascinating, Tim, and I'm going to love you exploring that, because there's just like, it's a really stupid little ad that'll pop up on YouTube every so often for, like, I think it's called a panda drum.
Well, yeah,
every time I hear
Yeah.
that, I'm just like I could totally fall asleep to that. No problem. I need to hire
Yeah.
somebody to play the panda drum over in the corner of my bedroom at night and I totally believe it, because it's like the minute I start hearing the tones of that, I'm just like, wow, that feels so, it makes your body, it just feels good. It's just like we know that there are like the devil's chord and everything in music that is that, dissonance that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's used in a lot of horror music. So, if you can have that, why couldn't you have something that would be healing to people?
Sure. And therein lies the exploration. It's like, great, I'm going to go down that rabbit hole and make a few dozen example pieces and, do little compilations that focus on this, that,
Oh, that'd be cool.
and just, I like to organize things, because when people come to the site, I like, okay, you know what you're looking at, you know what to look for. It's tagged right and everything. It's easy to find. That's another thing too. I'm going to be doing song packs this year, so people can just download like a whole batch, and there'll be packs that are auto-regulated. So every time I upload a new album, it'll become part of that pack automatically. I don't have to reformulate it or anything based on a tag or the genre tag for it. So it's like, oh, it's like that pack has a bunch of new horror in it. And anybody that purchases it, it'll be a purchase because, I'm simplifying it. You don't have to sit there and download 400 tracks for, it's like, for a simple fee, I put this whole thing together. It's got all the attribution language in there in a text file, and you just, boom, take it all at once, So another thing to offer, extended license. I'm going to do standard licensing and stuff too for people that can't give attribution. So they have it on file. And if they're on, if it's in a movie or social media, movies typically will give attribution. They don't have a problem putting it in the credits. But there's something like a television ad. You can't get away from.
They usually don't put that in there.
You can't put it in there. Yeah. So, and that's usually a sync license thing. You have to do some kind of sync arrangement, because they want to we'll make sure you didn't steal somebody's sample and I'm going to get sued by somebody else. People are so litigious. It just drives me nuts.
Have you ever been to the Coral Castle here in Florida?
No. And I've talked to Kevin about that recently. I've talked to my daughter and my ex-wife about going down there, potentially going for a visit down. It's a long ride, so it'd have to be like a weekend trip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's like it's in Homestead.
Yeah, I think it took me 5 hours to get down there. Yeah.
Okay. So it's deep. It's past Miami.
Yes, but it's such a cool place, because along the lines of what you're talking about there, they don't know how the guy built this place, and there are people who wonder
it was all under secret.
Maybe there was,
yeah,
maybe there was something audio that he used, or because they were like, well, maybe he built this contraption that leveled things and could put things up this way or that way. And I'm like, there were other people who said he levitated stuff, so it's like, I don't know, could you levitate things with something audio, that kind of thing?
Yeah, he did it all by himself and using supposed ancient techniques, and supposedly didn't do it with anybody witnessing any of it. And then suddenly this whole place was built, and he had walls, obscuring whatever he was doing, or he did it at night. I forget what the lore is behind it.
He started in one site and moved a bunch of it to the site where it is now. So he had to get it from there in a truck, and then over there and off the truck. Yeah.
We're not talking light things. We're talking
tons.
10, 20 tons a piece, right?
Yes.
Yeah. This is not something that's, I can just throw it in the back of my truck and get it up. No.
No, and some of it is carved, so he had to carve it. It wasn't like he just oh, that's an interesting looking stone, I'll pick it up and take it over there. He carved it so it fits together. I mean, he's got so much stuff in there. He has an accurate sundial, and there's holes for the different the equinoxes and all that stuff. It's just it's a fascinating place.
Is the dude still alive, or did he pass away?
He died, I think, in the 60s or something. I can't remember.
Okay, so it's that old.
It's been there for a long time.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Now you've convinced me. It's got to be a 2026 travel trip.
Well, and if you're going to go down there, then you can go into the Keys and hang out for a little bit down in the Keys too, because there's so much great stuff down there. Get some fresh seafood, and I don't know.
So as a spiritual person, a person of faith, this 12-year journey, how has that affected you? How have these stories affected you? Has it changed your thoughts and position on what it means to be a person of faith or a person that's spiritual?
I think it's just solidified everything for me. When you have these experiences that you can't explain, you understand that there's something outside of our existence. What that is, I'm not for sure, but I'm definitely, I don't believe you're just going to put me in the ground and that's it. And I just turn to dust. I believe there's something. And so it kind of gives you that reassurance that even though my body might die, something about me is going to continue to go on. And when you have something that happens, it seems like it's coming from something intelligent, then you're like, and it also isn't just that, oh, I'm not going to know who I was. There's something about my subconscious or my conscience that goes on, which I think is important. Because if it's just your soul that goes on and you don't have any memories of your life here, I don't know how that works. Because I also know, well, you don't want to have negative stuff going into that afterlife either. So, I mean, we won't know till we get there. But for me, it's just helped to deepen what I already believed spiritually for me personally. But it has also bumped up against some of that because, a lot of people, I'm a Christian, so you shouldn't be, interacting with ghosts and that kind of thing. It's a lot of the stuff that we talk about is, would be forbidden or what have you. So it's been kind of interesting to try to put those things together where it's like, I'm a Christian, but I'm still open to this stuff over here.
Sure. And I mean, I was brought up Roman Catholic and kind of graduated beyond that to more of a, I don't know if you call it like just a generalist when it comes to spirituality, because I feel like most of the dogma kind of lends itself to that, rightly so and understandably so. It lends itself to the individual faiths because let's face it, the individual faiths want to reinforce themselves, and you want a group that carries the faith on, right? But I think there's a certain level of rigidity when you rely too much on dogma and not enough on common sense and realize that, okay, here's 5 different religions, or here's 4,500 different sects of Christianity, all believing that they're right? But what's the underlying, common factor amongst all of them? Is it something positive? And I often just go back to, listen, you could put me in whatever box you want when it comes to spirituality and everything, but I fall back to the golden rule, love the universe and everything that's in it, and treat others like you want to be treated yourself. You know what I mean? And having a standard thought and feeling like that and behavior and trying to adhere to that on a daily basis as much as possible. We all falter, we all trip up. It's usually one of 4 factors. I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm angry, I'm lonely,
Yeah.
It's like one of those things, I'm just, one of those things is altering, or it's just my stupid ego coming out of all this stuff. And that's a whole nother thing you can get into where, we're the spiritual being experiencing this 3-dimensional existence, and we're observing this mind that's not even really who we are. Who we are spiritually, we can't even conceive of because it's eternal. We can't go to nothing. We can never not exist. We exist that way. Therefore we exist forever. And this is a temporal existence and very temporary existence. And we don't really know the purpose of it, but we try to figure it out along the way. And some people get it right out of the gate. They're born, they're 5-10 years old. They're like, I'm going to be a pilot. And they're a pilot for the rest of their lives. They knew, like, right from the womb what they're supposed to do. Others of us falter and, try several different careers or whatever, and maybe that's what we're supposed to do. Maybe we're supposed to have this big, grandiose experience while we're here. And, maybe this isn't the only time we come. Maybe we have multiple experiences like this. Maybe it's hundreds or thousands, and maybe it's not even as the same species. Maybe we're in another planet in another part of the universe. I realize the older I get, Diane, the less I know and the more open I am to the fact that I just don't know shit. I just don't know anything. And I am fascinated by the world and the universe around me and the things that other people experience and the things that most importantly, what other people get excited about. As long as the thing they get excited about is positive, right? I'm excited about killing things. No, I'm not excited for you, but like people are like, I have this hobby, and it's like, you know, I make these crochets of Star Wars scenes, and it's like, dude, that's super hyper specific. And I'm so excited for you that you found a thing that you're passionate about, and they like make a living doing it. Like that's just, I don't know anybody that does that, but I'm saying, like, just the point being is that there's people out there that found their passion, and it just boom, like their life just explodes with this vibrant experience and wonderful time, and you could feel the energy pulsing off them. Like, you are doing what you're here to do. Like, bro, I'm gonna buy that just because I want you to keep doing your thing. I want you to keep going down that path. It's just, that kind of stuff excites me. And that's why I think this kind of exploration, this journey, it seems like this journey still has a lot of legs for you and Kelly. And it seems like it's not exhaustive. Like there's always a new story around the corner.
Yeah, there's so many different angles to come at things too. And I totally agree with you there, because I was raised Missouri Synod Lutheran, which is just, like I say, it's one step down from the Roman Catholicism. And
Okay.
that's the reason why I got away from that too, is I don't like that being locked in, the religiosity. Like, you always say the same liturgy every single Sunday, and we're all going to pray the exact same way. And I'm like, if I was God, which thank God I'm not, because I would really screw some things up, wouldn't you want it to be on a personal level? Like, I want to know what you are thinking. And so a lot of the time when I'm praying, I might cuss, or, I'm just going to, it's not a formal thing, or I'll just be talking. It might sound like I'm talking to myself, but I'm actually, talking to whatever that universal thing is out there. And I think that is part of our journey. And I find myself, the longer I live, just like you said, it's not so much doubting things, it's just there's little things that happen that you're like, I can't quite explain this. For example, Kelly, who is my co-host and is also my wife, when we met each other, everything, the way it clicked together, the way I describe it to people is I don't know that we pre-exist or not, but I feel like before you get into your mother's womb, there's like this thing that they show you, and they're like, here's a film of your life. See how much you can remember. And that's why I think for some of us, we get these feelings like deja vu, because it's like, oh, I saw this. So when I met Kelly, it was almost like, bam, that's the person I'm supposed to be with. This whole life I've had up until I get to 45. I've had little inklings of this person. Like, everybody that I ever dated or had a relationship with had little pieces of her. And then it was like, that's the complete puzzle. And so I always look at it like, it feels like there was this video or this film that you're showing of your life. Like, people say at the end of your life, you see your life flash before your eyes. I'm like, how do we know that that doesn't happen before you're here too? And then it's like, okay, that's the path.
Right.
And maybe like you said, like you, this in my life, and I've done that in my life, and I've tried this out, and how is this working? And I've gone in a lot of directions I never thought. I mean, if you would have said, oh, you're going to be doing a podcast, and you're going to be doing on haunted history, I would have been like, what are you even talking about? I don't know anything about technical stuff and recording and doing all of this. I mean, I had to teach myself all of that. But it's almost like some people, like you said, they're just like, bam, this is who they are, and they're just experts at it, and it's just, and I'm like, well, why have I been like, there's other people who are just like focused and straight there.
Well, yeah, like when it comes to music, I mean, I was introduced to it early on. Like when I was a child, like single digits, I'd walk around and I'd have this, in retrospect, I remember this, I would have like this score going in my head for different things. Like if I was feeling sad, I would feel like sad music playing in my head. Or if I was happy, there would be, or if there was something really exciting, it'd be some like action orchestration thing going on or whatever. And I remember I was like 10 or 11 and I wanted to start learning an instrument at school. And I asked my dad if I could start playing a trumpet. And he must have been going to bars that had this one particular individual that was a keyboard player. And he was like, no. And plus I was an asthmatic as a kid. So the idea of me hammering on a trumpet and trying to do that, I think my father just put the kibosh on that. And he's like, no, I don't think so. You're going to play the keyboard. My God, I thank for practically every day, like thank God for my father for doing that. We butt heads over the years and had our moments of, not getting along and not speaking for years at a time. But my God, without that push, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today, you know? And so thank God for my dad, love him to pieces for it, because this is my life. Like, I love this. You know, I love creating this stuff. And I wouldn't have the musical palette that I have had I not journeyed into the place with keyboards, because with keyboards I can play anything. You know, I'm not restricted to a guitar. I'm not restricted to a drum set. I'm not restricted to a bass, you know, or just vocals. I could do it all, you know, play instruments that don't really even exist in reality. You know, like literally, I can make up my own stuff.
Sure.
I could sample your voice right now and make an instrument. I could do anything, you know. It's this unbridled level of creativity that I am just so forever grateful to him for. I'm forever grateful to the universe for providing it to me. And some people would say, well, yeah, but then like you took a hiatus, you know, you did it through high school in your early to mid 20s, but then like you walked away from it for the most part for 20 years. And like I dabbled in it here and there during like my mid 20s to mid 40s. And then I got serious about it again and did what I did. But I don't think I could be doing what I'm doing now without all that life experience, the people I met along the way, the business acumen I learned in that whole process of doing what I did, you know, like doing the other kind of jobs and the other focuses that I did, to the point where now I understand the discipline required for what I'm doing when I'm in over my head and when I need to hire an expert, right? All that, so that this is the best time for this kind of musical composition and catalog to be successful for me. If I had done this in my 20s, I think it would have fizzled out. So like everything happens as it should. Maybe I struggle with the idea of predestiny because I am making choices, but if I made the choice before I got here, like you were suggesting, or maybe suggesting, then it's going the way it's supposed to. And maybe I'm, as the physical being, I'm the observer of it. And the idea is just to get in flow and let it happen, you know, organically and naturally, and stop pushing back and be like, well, I can't, or I don't know, like stop having that inner dialogue. Like any of that stuff, I try as hard as possible to eject that from my brain. Because I can't, I don't know, I'll never, like that doesn't, your brain's going to be like, yep, and I'll figure out exactly how to define that for you, right? I'll tell you in your being, in your mind, in your soul, everything, how you can't be successful at what you want to be because you're saying that to yourself over and over and over again as an inner mantra, right? And I just don't buy that. If that were the case, I wouldn't have 1,000 songs under my belt.
Good for you.
No way.
Don't listen to that.
You know what I mean? That would never be a reality. So the point being is that I think people get hung up on the past and get anxious, you know, they get regretful about the past and the things they didn't do, and they get anxious about the future and what they need to do, and just not focus on what can you do right now, right? And people often negate and push aside the value of micro achievements, right? Just a little step further every single day. An email, a song idea, a social media post, a this, a that, like all these little things in what I'm doing builds to that next level. And a year from now, that aggregate is going to be that much huger. But at the moment, in time, like in the present, it doesn't seem like much, but if you just do it, if you're just disciplined with it and just keep moving forward and making these little micro gains every single day, I think that's just it. We're such an instant gratification society, Diane, that so many people just eject that. And there's like, I want it now. I mean, you know, this social media guy blew up with a viral video or whatever. It's like 9 times out of 10, if you look behind the scenes, there's advertising money behind that. They've got an agent. That was all engineered. So pull the curtain aside and you'll realize, yeah. You know, all those views, all that interaction on their socials, bought and paid for in a lot of cases, you know? So if you've got 10 organic followers that love you, you won. You've got 10 people that love what you're doing. Embrace that. and
Yeah,
build
I
from
notice
there.
this all the
You
time
know?
when you're on people's social media and you'll see like, oh, they got 4 million people that are following them. And then you look at the interactions and you're like, they got 4 million people, but there's only 3,000 likes. I mean, I would be devastated. So I'm like, I would kind of rather be where I'm at and see that
Hmm.
I'm getting like, 25% of the people that are following me are literally following me and paying attention to what I'm doing. That's why it's so great when it's organic, because those people really do love you and they're going to seek you out and they want to see, like, I have people that I'm like, okay, well, what are they doing today? Or, when your email comes, I actually read it. It's not just like, oh, that's just an email from somebody who, managed. I like specifically said, yes, I want to follow Tim. I want to know what's going on in his life, that kind of thing. So I totally get what you're saying there. I heard somebody the other day saying also, live in the moment, because so many of us are thinking about, like, you dwell on your past and, oh, I should have done this different or whatever. Like, you could do anything about that now, or you're always like, okay, this is what I'm going to do in the future, and you don't even know if that future is going to be there. And so, I think if you start focusing a lot more on the, maybe that's where addicts and stuff that are in recovery have it, where it's like one day at a time. Focus on where
Right.
you
Right.
are today and enjoy that moment. And like you said, it's building on one block after the other, because like I think I heard a statistic that only like 5% of podcasts make it past the 10th episode. I think I heard that the other day,
Yeah.
and I'm
They
like,
actually said that at
what?
yeah. That's an insane statistic, and it's very accurate. I learned that last year at Podfest, and I wasn't able to go this year. I did have a ticket, and I was it just I had 2 or 3 things that came in conflict, and it was probably too late to do anything about it. So I'm just like, maybe next year I'll go. But I got some really good information out of it last year, and that was one key one, which is lots of people try it, but my God, Diane, it's follow through and consistency is the killer of most people's successes, because they think they're going to go and post 5 episodes and blow up, right? But no, it's the consistent podcast that's been doing it for 150 episodes, and then a spark hits, right? The right person listens and shares it on Reddit or here or whatever, and then suddenly you get this influx of people that are interested in what you're talking about. And I think that starts with authenticity. It starts with you're really interested in what you're doing. I'm a musician and a composer, but I'm also a podcaster, and I talk to other creatives that use music and use my music in some cases. In some cases, they're just somebody else that's really interesting that is also a fellow creative, and we find a way to come together and have a shared experience for an hour, hour and a half, and cross promote each other and talk in a way and share this experience of making something from nothing together, or with what we do. And I think it's really important to reinforce that. So many of us go to our 9 to 5s and our day in, day out, and don't have a creative outlet. And in the traditional sense, right? In like the artistic traditional sense, I think you can be creative at whatever you do. You can go and be a sous chef and be amazing. You can go and be an administrator in a law firm and be phenomenal at what you do and be amazing and creative in the ways that you solve problems
Mm-hmm.
doing that. Any number of careers can you use a creative output or get a creative output from, but it's framing, right? You have to frame your experience in such a way as to live that experience and live that creativity. Otherwise, you fall into this doldrum of, working 5 days, sometimes 6 for that 1 or 2 day weekend. For what? To start it all over again and anticipate just a couple days. I want to anticipate every moment of my life, not 2 days or 1 day a week. This isn't work for me. This is fun. Like
Yes.
everything about what I do now is fun. I can't even imagine having to go back to the corporate world, and I'm not going to allow myself to do it. I'm just going to be successful in what I'm doing. That's all there is to it. There is no alternative. This is it.
Well, and what we
Like, this is what I
create
want.
will survive us. It will go on past us. So it's like you've left something behind that people can enjoy, whether it's writing a book or making music or a podcast or what have you. And how many times have we heard too that, this person was an overnight success, and then you look back on their history and it's like they've been doing this for 10 years. They're not an overnight success.
Right. Right. You're seeing the tip of the iceberg. You're not seeing everything that's underwater, which is 95% of that iceberg.
Exactly.
And I always say that, like, I think back to the Seattle scene. You had like Pearl Jam come out with their first album 10, which had like 6 or 7 bangers that were like charted releases, right? They released all those singles. They were all like, there were tons of really good tracks off that album. They've been together for 10 years. That was their best work. The culmination of the last 10 years, like the best tracks they had. So you're looking at everything that was going to be successful for, you know what I mean? And then you hear people, it's like the second and third album, like, they're like, there's a couple of good ones on there. There's some duds or whatever. Now you're dealing with a band that's been signed and they have this obligation to pump out things in a certain time frame, and that's a whole area of the industry I never wanted to have, like, because that's a compromise of your artistic path, like through and through right there. Some people do it very well, but for me, it's like, dude, I'm channeling this stuff. I don't know where it's coming from. I sit down here and I play a patch for a little bit and I'm like, that sounds pretty interesting. 2 hours go by and I lost myself. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? And half the time I'm half asleep. It's like first thing in the morning, or I feel no motivation. I'm like, I don't want to freaking be here. Like, I don't want to write anything, but I put on my schedule. So discipline says I should sit down and at least get 2 of 5 ideas down. And there you go. Like, it just happens. Like, you just got to show up. I think life's about showing up.
I agree.
I don't want to be a passive observer of my life. I want to show up and be involved.
And the experts.
So speaking of showing up and being,
I was going to say the experts don't always know either. I listened to the Professor of Rock's podcast, and it's amazing how many times he'll be talking about an album from a group, and whoever signed them, their record company's like, oh, there's no hits on that, and then there's like 5 hits that are on the thing. And supposedly they're the experts.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing too, is that art, visual, music, performance, all very subjective, right? As to whether or not it's good or not. Because what's great for somebody is lousy for somebody else, right? So I think you just have to do your thing, and the people that dig it will show up. It's kind of like Mystery Science 3000 from back in the day. They have reruns. They have a whole channel on Shout TV, and they have this, intermezzo in there where it's like this graphic and this animation, and it's like Misty 3000, and it's like the right people will get it. And that's exactly what it's like a mantra for my life. It's like, listen, my music isn't for everybody, but the right people will get it. Right people will enjoy it, So you just got to keep writing authentically for yourself. You got to keep exploring the paranormal and ghostly places that inspire you, and act on your highest excitement and explore that. So what's the plans for 2026? Do you got major podcast plans, travel plans? What's on the docket for you guys?
Well, we got a camper this last year, so there is a lot more travel.
I saw that
is set for our future here, that we'll be able to do a little bit more road tripping. I think we're going to try to hit the Great Smoky Mountains, and there's a lot of places there. We haven't been to Pigeon Forge and all that before. So I've driven through the Great Smoky Mountains, but never stayed there. So I think we're going to have a lot of more places where we actually have gone to visit them in person. And a lot of the smaller locations, like I told you, I mean, we've gotten to a point now where it's going to be a lot of obscure places people have never heard of before, that would be new to them. And at first, I was like, oh gosh, our listenership's probably just going to go down because people are going to be looking for the big things. But I'm like, nope, I'm actually really excited for this year and a lot of these more obscure places, because I think that we're going to get more hits on that, because that's what the numbers have been showing in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, that obscure, that esoteric stuff that's not the
Hmm.
mainstream. Like, oh, you can go to, you can go and do, like Salem, but like everybody goes to Salem, right? Now, how many docs and various things and investigations have been done on Salem? I would equate this to some of the stuff I do with Tom, the American Expendables movie we did, the documentary, the investigation of the films of North American pictures, predominantly straight to video martial arts videos in the 90s, right? Very niche, like deep dive into, like, for 60, 70 minutes into like this very specific area. We had no idea how it was going to land. None whatsoever. We're just like, this is pretty specific, this is pretty like niche or whatever. It did wonderfully at in the festival circuit. It did great. And a lot of people are like, man, this is really interesting. Like, never knew about this, didn't know anything about it. But then you also bring up the sense of nostalgia. Nostalgia is really big right now. And especially in our generation, we're looking back at like, yeah, all the fun stuff from the 80s and everything else. And it just speaks to people because authentically we were curious, right? And it must have come out that way on film, and it must have been interesting enough for people to be like, yeah, show me more. I want to see this whole thing. It's an hour of my life. Let's see what they have to say
Sure.
about all this stuff. And it's just very cool. Like, so that's for all our future docs. That's pretty much how we feel. Like that's the journey. It's what excites us. What's interesting. Let's go. Right. Let's dig in, roll our sleeves up, and do some discovery.
Yeah, and that passion
Any
comes
specific
through. And what I'm hoping
Yeah.
is that a lot of people, because this is going to be centering on historic downtowns, well, everybody lives in a city with a historic downtown. So now I'm thinking a lot of people will be walking around their cities going, there's a lot of old buildings down here. Wonder if there's anything going on in them. Maybe they'll get more curious about where they're at too.
You have specific locations lined up already?
Not really. I mean, I try to work out a month ahead. I have a huge list, but it's not like have anything set. I definitely have quite a few life and afterlives in there because people just love that so much. So we're going to have one. We haven't done Jimi Hendrix yet, so I know we're going to have that coming up.
Fun.
Rudolph Valentino. I mean, he's an old time movie star, but he haunts a lot of places. So we'll probably hit on him too. And maybe even Frank Sinatra.
Very cool. Is it still as fun as it was 12 years ago?
It is. I do have to say, I mean, I've gone through, it's kind of a hill where there's times where you're like, I'm getting bored with this, and you just have to find something to get you sparked again, and it always catches fire again. Sometimes it's just part of the going into the video sparked a whole new, like, okay, it's made it exciting again, and now we're like bantering and made it more one-on-one. Sometimes I find myself going, I wish I could rewind back to the beginning and have everything the way it is now and do it that way, because I think it would be even more successful. But of course, we didn't have that stuff back then, so you can't really do that whole rewind thing.
Right. And if we're being honest, like, it's as successful and you guys have the chemistry you do now because of all that time.
Exactly.
Right. And all the experience that you had. I think it's real easy to get that, like, wow, in retrospect, no, it happened how it was supposed to, and you have the hiccups along the way. Yeah. I mean, like I said to you right in the beginning, I've been on a hiatus for a little over 2 months with the exception of a handful of ideas. And there's a itchiness in the back of my brain. It's like, don't stop writing for too long. You're not going to want to do it anymore. And it's like, that's not the case. I wrote a lot of songs last year. It's okay to take a breather and focus on the admin side, which is what I'm doing right now. Just rounding out some new features on the website, focusing on content, focusing on reach of the whole catalog, and making sure that people understand that I'm out there, that it's available, and that I'm a pure writer. I'm not firing out a bunch of AI slop that I'm not auditing or editing or anything like that. I write my own music, and it's human made stuff. And there's definitely like a massive influx on platforms of AI produced music, and it's starting to get a little crazy. And the jury's still out on how and where you can use it legally and who really owns it. It's really a kind of strange thing. So, God bless anybody that engages in that and explores that. But me personally, I would never taint my core catalog with that because I don't want anything affecting this. I want this to be a safe space for creators. It's basically.
Here's a great example for you. I had another podcaster and we were going to do like a swap of our shows. And I went, why don't we try to do something like this where we do like a show together and focus on something? And it was right before Christmas. And I said, why don't we do like, I'd seen this video on YouTube about haunted Christmas markets. And I'm like, ooh, that sounds fun. Well, so we both watched the video and then we start doing the research on it and come to find out this is an AI video and it's all made up. Like the locations are made up, the stories are made up. It was just all made up.
Wow.
And so then you start going, wow, this is out there now too. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be competing with as well, because like for you, it'd be like licensing and everything. And you have to think AI learns from other stuff. So they've got to be pulling music from other people and incorporating that in some way. So is there going to be some copyright weird stuff going on there? So same thing with this.
That's already happening, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, that's already happening, actually, because the language models, the two big ones are Udio and Suno, and they don't disclose where they taught from, where they train their models from. But it's heavily pop music because that's what sells, that's what's popular. So and I think there's been some lawsuits already because there's phrasing and sounds that are very sound alike, so much so that you're like, that's too close. That has to be, they had to have trained off of Taylor Swift or this or that or what, you know what I mean? So it's gonna be interesting. There's class action suits. Warner Music bought Udio, basically, or has a controlling interest in it. So now a major studio, it's a major studio. I mean, it's a major publisher, has control over an AI generating software. So what does that tell you is going to happen? Like they're just going to be pumping out all that stuff themselves, like eliminate the artist, right? Just, you've got some people prompting for the next big musician. Like it just seems stupid. I don't know. Even on the production music side of things, like how can you guarantee that somebody has rights and ownership to something? And you're not going to get that human interaction. You're not going to get that. My next question, which is, listen, you don't have to answer it on the podcast, but literally anything you got coming down the pipeline this year, give me some ideas of what you need. I'm here to make it for you. I've reached out to a couple other folks that use my stuff this year. It's always a good catalyst for me knowing what, and I mean, spooky is spooky.
Yes.
Right. And I know that I've got plenty of tracks that do the thing, but if it needs to be a little more whimsical or, a little more playful, I could do that stuff too. So you don't have to answer it now, but think about it down the pipeline. If you want to just shoot me a quick email or text or something, just like, Tim, I really wouldn't mind something like this, or maybe like some old timey music, but that's a little more dirge and like a little creepier, because I'm dealing with some of these older towns in like, say, Louisiana or something. And it just feels like that might be a better vibe for the few episodes I'm doing, stuff like that. Because when I have to take a couple of genres or a couple of different ideas and mix them together and play around with it, I'm like, ooh, that's fun. Let's see if I can pull that off. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes I'm like, that kind of sucked, but then I give it to somebody and they're like, I love it. I'm like, okay. I'm pedestal, right? Way too high. I'm trying to be creative about something and push it. I hammer myself harder than I think anybody else probably would.
Of course.
So it's just the nature of creating, I suppose. Well, listen, it was great catching up with you. I look forward to seeing everything that's going to happen with the podcast this year and your travel journeys and stuff. Keep me posted.
Right.
I definitely want to, especially on some of these obscure places, it'd be wonderful. I'm just envisioning, like, have you done ghost towns or like old, like Wild West places and stuff like that? Have you stopped into anything like that?
We've covered some of them on the show, but as for going to them, no. And so that's like something we're actually going to be, Kelly's dad is still in Southern California. We're going to be visiting him
Okay.
in a couple of months here. And I told her, I said, I've gone to like mining towns in Colorado where I grew up, but I've not been to like
Mhm.
a ghost town, like the ones that are in Utah,
Yeah.
Nevada, and California. So I think we're going to try to squeeze one of those in because I'm like, we need to
That would
do
be
something
awesome.
like that.
And getting some footage too of you guys walking through there.
Yes, and we actually have been
you know.
thinking more about getting camera, and I can't even think of what the name of the thing is that holds your phone for you.
Like a
Yes,
gimbal?
we just
Yeah.
got one of
Yeah,
those, so
yeah.
I'm like all excited. I'm like, oh, we could be like, we're professional now.
Yeah, yeah. You are professionals. You've been doing this for 12
I
years.
know.
And successfully at that. So, well, looking forward to all of it, Diane. Thanks so much for making time today, and look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thank you, Tim. I had a great time.